Hi, it's Glenn Dalto from Spiritual Speaking Training, and today I'm going to talk about framework. There are many frameworks on building a presentation, and this is just one of the many that I use. But we're going to go over one that's a simple, easy one that covers just about all of the bases. So the first thing we're going to do is remember that you have your goal line, your main point, the main point that you have that you want your audience to know when they walk out the door. You need to know that, you need to know that clearly, and do it in 7 words or less. So in the center of this thing, you take a sheet of paper. We're just going to take this sheet of paper here, and in the center you draw a big circle. And that is your goal line, which is your 7-word or less phrase that you want them to know when they walk out the door. So that's what you put right in the center of your paper. So your paper would look like this. You have just a nice 8.5, 11 piece of paper in landscape mode. So you got that. So you put that right in the center. So this way you know everything you do has to point to your goal line, your 7-word or less goal line. If it doesn't point to that, you can't make a point to that, you can't use it. It's just distracting. Now you break your presentation up into sections. And what it looks like is this. So what it's going to look like is this. So you put a couple lines like that. You put a couple lines like that. You put a couple lines like that. You put a line up here, and you put a couple lines like that. And it looks like some kind of crazy flag. But these all mean something. So in this section here, we're going to start clockwise. This section here, right here, is your introduction. Your introduction, which is say, my name is, your opening line, whatever that's going to be on. Over here is your first point. That's your first point. When you have a presentation, it's good to have no more than 3 points that you're going to cover. Because if you go to 4, 5, and 6 points, people will not remember it. People can remember 3 points. So figure out your goal line, your 7-word or less goal line, the thing you want to remember, and come up with 3 supporting points that will support that. So now you have your first point here, your second point here, and here is your third point. This is your third point. So now you have your introduction, your first point, second point, third point. And each one of these points, come up with a 7-word phrase of what you're going to talk about in this point. Like in this talk here, the overall goal line is to have a framework for your presentation. Framework for your presentation, I think, is only 5 words. So framework for a presentation. The intro, I introduced myself. I told you what I was going to talk about. Now the first point is actually the first point was having the goal line. That was the first point they talked about, was having the goal line. The second point was then having 3 points, point in here. Now the third point is expanding on this and filling this in some more, is that each one of your points have little points in that. So what are you going to talk about in each one of your points? So have your 7-word phrase for each one of the points, and then little points that you're going to talk about to support those things. So this can be, you can talk about this in 30 seconds, or you can talk about it for a whole weekend thing once you lay it out like this. So each one of these, you fill each one of these out, and then you start building up your talk, and everything's got to point back to your point, which then points back to your goal line, your 7-word goal line. Here is your closing. Where you have a closing where you recap everything. Here you introduce what you're going to talk about, here you talk about each one of the things, and here you recap the whole thing, restate your goal line to them so they remember it in their head, and then it comes out. So that's what the whole framework is. Now these things here, these are called your transition lines. This is how you transition from one point to another. So this would be a transition. I am a creative speller, so we'll just leave it at that. And a transition transition line, and this is the transition line. So that gets you from here, that gets you to there, that gets you to here. You have another transition line, which is your closing line, which gets you into closing, and this gets you out, and this is the end of your presentation. So you have an introduction, then you have a transition line which gets you into your first point. You have a transition line which gets you into your second point, and a transition line which gets you into your third point. And all you need to do is lay this out like this. This is one of the layouts I use. And you said you have your whole thing, your introduction, your first point, your transitions, your second point, transition, third point, transition, closing, you're all done. And like I said, you can expand this for a 5-minute talk, a 30-second talk, or a weekend whole workshop. So there's one way to do a framework of a talk. Hope you can use it. If you have any questions, I've got other ones also. If you have any questions, comment below. I will get back to you and share this thing. And always, anything that you want me to go cover and give you ideas on, comment on that, and I will gladly make a video on it. Thank you very much. Keep speaking. I love you. Bye-bye.